I'm delighted that as many people turned up in Tranmere for his testimonial match because he certainly deserves it.
He'd just give you 110% every time he put a red shirt on. And I think that's why the Anfield crowd took to him.
He was a real cop-out, you know, and he really sort of represented the fans on the pitch.
Everyone knows all about his goal scoring, but just what an incredibly nice guy he was, to be honest with you.
Brilliant off the pitch, you know, and I've got great memories of him as being a great character.
I think he's 37 now, so he's still scoring goals. So as I say, it must be something that he's born with, and he's deserved all the success and all the adulation that people want to give him.
He's not the greatest player outside the box, but I think he's possibly one of the greatest inside the box.
Aldridge! If you're a striker and you score goals, then what more qualities do you need?
John Aldridge does it again!
And he had that in abundance.
Aldridge is there! Aldridge!
Anything that went into the 6-yard box, you can guarantee that Aldo was on the end of it.
Don't look at the goal, look at the 5 seconds previously.
Aldridge!
And that is the perfect description of John Aldridge. Look at the 5 seconds previously. It's all going on up there.
The ability to be in the right place at the right time.
Left foot cross, might come to Aldridge! Oh, Aldridge!
And he always kept his composure.
But if you go down the line and you get the ball into the box, he'll be on the end of it.
Yes, Aldridge!
Every single time, or 99% of the time.
It's a hat-trick for Aldridge!
He's just got this great attribute of getting into the box and scoring goals.
Where we're going to now is Garston. It's a very rough area of Liverpool, but the people are good people. My mum and dad lived in Garston. I was brought up, you know, down by the docks here. Now coming to the school that I used to go to just up here called Banks Road.
Oh, come on, you must remember this. First one there. Look at that, 24th of the second, 67. Misbehaving in class. Look at that. How many strokes was it? One. Come on, hang on. Let's just turn over. There's another one. There's another.
The first game I ever played for the school, actually I played right midfield. Wasn't the best. I remember hitting the post, but it was my own goal. So I thought, no, I'll have to try and get up the other end of the park here. This isn't working.
Many years ago, we played against each other at school level, and John, even then, stood out because of his ability to score goals.
The initial break was one getting into Newport County, Robin Ashurst, who was my colleague in British Leyland as a toolmaker. You know, we used to talk football as we do in Liverpool, day in, day out. And he was aware of me playing for South Liverpool local team. He went and watched me play against Runcorn, a game which we won 4-1. And I had a decent game. And he went back and told Len, who was then manager of Newport County.
We were actually playing the next day on a Sunday. I travelled up from South Wales, watched John play, very impressed. He did everything you'd want to see in a centre forward in the first 20 minutes of the game. And I really couldn't believe how good a player he was at that standard.
He wasn't telling me this was going on, Robin. They came and watched me 2 weeks later when we played Frickley at home, and we won 3-0 and scored 3. Had another good game.
At the time, there was a number of managers there. I can't remember the boys who were there, all of them, but I know Johnny King was one of them, and he was in his first spell at Tranmere at the time.
He was just one of those players, and it's not many times that you get that feeling. But I couldn't sleep that night after seeing him play because there was a boy there, he looked a bit skin and bone, but by Jove, in the box he was a mover. And I came back to my chairman, I said, I've seen a player, I need him. He said, you've just signed one. I said, I need another one. How much? 3,500. I missed him. I couldn't come up with the 3,500.
Well, he set the place alight, quite frankly. He was the catalyst, really, for the success, the limited success that club had over many years. They'd done nothing. He helped us win the Welsh Cup, won promotion from the old 4th Division to the 3rd. Got into Europe, reached the quarter-finals of the European Cup. Over 3 years, they had 3 tremendous successes for a very small club. And really, John set all that off.
The one at the top, as you see there, the Oxford one. That was the first one. Springs to mind. That was of great importance because it was on Match of the Day. And as a young lad, you know, I was a big supporter on Match of the Day. And it was the Leeds game. We were losing 2-0, and we came back to win 5-2. And I scored the last 3 goals.
He's got more balls than we've got here at this club at the moment, you know. He's a phenomenal goal scorer, isn't he? I mean, I'd like to know how many hat-tricks he's actually got.
First goal was a fine ball in by Kevin Brock. I don't know what, a little bit of 1-2. Passed out to the wing, he floated it in, and I timed it on perfect and headed into the far corner.
3-2! John Aldridge I saw a few times playing for Newport.
The second goal was a great through ball by Billy Hamilton. I rounded the keeper and put it in with my left.
He's got past the goalkeeper! Aldridge, 4-2!
And I wanted to sign him, but just before the deadline, but I was away on business.
And the third goal was just before the final whistle. Kevin Brock again, who was a tremendous crosser of the ball. Crossed it to the far post where, you know, really I couldn't miss. It was only a couple of yards out, and just headed it in.
A hat-trick!
So I rang Mr. Maxwell, who was my then chairman, and asked him, I said the fee would be around about £75,000 and sort John's deal out for me. He had a natural talent for goals, a natural greed for goals, and you know, I was very impressed with his work in the box, and we needed a goal scorer.
I remember mostly all his goals, because without his goals we wouldn't have got promoted that season into the First Division.
Only as far as Langham.
People that I've played with and complimented as a striking partnership, I was surprised. A lot of people, I'd say Billy Hamilton at Oxford. You know, I fed off him extremely well, and you know, I'd done the same for him, and we just complimented each other in every way. It was a great partnership from day one.
I'd have to agree with John, because Billy is a fantastic player. Unfortunately, he hit the finish with his knee, but he was a great man to play to, because he's a great target man.
We had a guy in the camp called David Langham, and he had nicknames for everybody. And so as soon as I'd called John Jimmy Greaves, that was his name. They started calling him on the pitch Jimmy Greaves, and it stuck with him.
He was such a handful. You ask any defender around at the time, and I'm sure he was one of the players they didn't want to play against, because he was so elusive in the box. You know, if you asked John where to go, he wouldn't know.
That was with Oxford, the year we went up from Division 2 as winners, Jim Smith's team. I scored 30 league goals that year and 4 cup, and that was a big honour, you know, at the time, first golden boot, and it was brilliant.
Mr. Maxwell had decided to offer me a new contract. I asked for certain terms, and they weren't met, and it wasn't, in all honesty, it wasn't a major difference either. But the next statement, when he said no, I couldn't have that, but I could speak to any club I wanted, I think it's more of a pride thing, really. You felt a bit hurt, so I did speak to another club and left.
The Milk Cup final of 1986, Oxford United's greatest day. United have had an astonishing 3 years. Champions of the third division in 1984, champions of the second in 85, the first club ever to do that. And now the first big cup final in the club's history. Unbelievable achievements when you remember United nearly folded in the early 80s. And what an irony. As Maurice Evans, the quiet man, leads out United, Jim Smith, who moulded both promotion sides, is now in charge at Rangers.
A little bit awesome, you know. Biggest crowd I've ever played in front of at the time.
Remember the night before the game, Maurice Evans, who was our manager, went round the team individually and asked us what your job was. tomorrow, which I found quite, you know, detracting really. I thought, go out there and win. I thought that was all everyone goes and does at Wembley.
Felt that we would win at Wembley, Queen's Park, but we never performed that well. And I thought Oxford, I mean, had come on. They played extremely well.
We were the underdogs and we won 3-0. You know, and it could have been 4 or 5 the way we played against QPR. We were very attacking side, open side. You know, we'd always score goals. You know, we might have leaked 1 or 2 at the back, but we always more than made up for it up front.
Aldridge, who's got Hebbard waiting in the middle. Back again for John Aldridge. Lining up the shot, pushed down, Jeremy Charles! That's 3, and that's victory!
I think John, if I remember rightly, he had a habit of getting goals whenever he was on television. I think that was, again, his extra motivation to let the other clubs know, the big clubs, that he was about, you know.
Likes of Ken Dalglish, you know, watched Match of the Day and other big managers and seen that I was scoring hat-tricks and goals on Match of the Day. And, you know, just get your name in a bigger limelight to see, and he says he's not a bad player who score goals. And that's where probably my name was embedded in Ken Dalglish's head through Match of the Day, if the truth's known. I think once your dad supports Liverpool, you tend to, you know, sort of support them after him. And vice versa if it's Everton.
That's where it all started.
It's my 5-a-side pitch. Used to be 2 posts here, either side here and at the top. And have our 2v2s and 3v3s here. 1-2s off the wall, you know.
As soon as he come in from school, I was here. Lived out here. Yeah, he was pretty good. He was never good as me, though. I was a better footsie than he'll ever be.
Every dad says that, don't they?
And the goalkeeper, I used to be the one that used to come out shouting.
My dad and my uncles used to take me to Liverpool. Then there was a bus that used to go from the top of the road who used to take. That was great, it was on my doorstep.
I was at Liverpool in the mid-70s. He used to come with his mates, and I used to speak to him in the car park before the match, and whenever possible I used to give him a couple of tickets to get in. So I actually knew John before he played for Liverpool and before he broke into the league, really.
It was something that I always dreamed of as a kid when I used to go to matches, you know, and watch him from the Cop. And I was very fortunate enough to have fulfilled it.
I think Liverpool Football Club means an awful lot to an awful lot of people. John certainly was read through and through, and that was reflected in the relationship he had with the people on the pitch. It's great when you get players that have that feeling for their club.
I was over in Melwood every Tuesday and Thursday when I was 14. Lasted quite a few weeks. I thought I'd done reasonably well, and I always remember Tom Saunders telling me not to come the following week and he'd be on the phone to me. But it took about 14 years for that phone call, and it cost the club £750,000, I think. It hurts, I must admit, you know, but because obviously, you know, it was always my dream to play for Liverpool. And when I got the knockback, you know, I thought it was never going to happen, really. The first I heard was the morning when we were playing Manchester City for Oxford United at Main Road, and the manager called me in his room at 10:30 in the morning, which I thought was very strange. You know, the manager was Morris Evans then, and he called me and he said the team's been in, and he think I'll be very happy when he heard who it was. And it's not Liverpool, is it? And he said, it is. Oh, you're joking. So I was absolutely delighted, but I think he made a big mistake telling me, because I never played very well that day, you know. I mean, we lost 1-0 and had a poor game, really.
Ian Rush was going to Italy, and Aldo was an ideal replacement, in my opinion, anyway. And I don't think you could get any higher recommendation than that.
I'd played against him at Oxford, and I think he scored against us at the Manor Ground, and I knew he was good in there, and I knew he had decent movement off the ball, and obviously he was renowned as a goal scorer. So we were delighted when he came.
For Kenny at Liverpool, I think John was probably the most significant signing for Anfield, for the Anfield days. John was a tremendous servant.
I don't think enough teams
have homegrown talent, do they, these days, and hometown talent. And I think it was Graham Souness that said, when he was manager at Liverpool, that he was really pleased because Liverpool-born players, players who had stood on the Kop and stood on the terraces, were now actually on the pitch. And he thought it made a big difference. And I think it has in John's case. I think John went out and played for Liverpool, the city, as well as Liverpool, the football club.
And I think I only played 2 full games from when I moved in February. And it did get me down. When I knocked on Kenny's door and said, what's going on, you know, I want to play, he just said, just be calm, take it easy, come next season when Ian's gone. It's a different ball game, I know your game, I'm going to get your wingers and play to your strengths. And he stuck by his word, and he got, I think the player was called John Barnes. You know, and it wasn't a bad move. He got Ray Houghton and Peter Beasley, and it clicked straight away.
Barnes now with a cross, and a good cross, and a goal by Aldridge.
But there was a lot of pressure on us because having not won anything in '87, a lot was expected of the players that he bought. You know, John Aldridge, myself, Peter Beardsley. But fortunately for us, everything clicked. From the first game pre-season to the first game at Arsenal where we won when John actually scored the winner, we knew then that we were onto something special.
And Aldridge, the look-alike Ian Rush, does the work that Rush did so well.
It was different to Ian Rush in many ways, but as far as his movement concerned off the ball and getting into goal scoring positions, very similar. And you know, we're always aware of if you put balls in the box, you know, John will get in the end of them.
And here's Barnes, and Aldridge this time, 2-0. Liverpool make it look so easy, and John Aldridge keeps a record going of which Ian Rush would be proud. This is the 8th time he started a league match for Liverpool, Aldridge, and he's scored in all 8.
I think it's a club record to score in 10 successive league games, I believe, which was great. You know, and ideal start. You know, a lot of pressure was on me to score goals. That eased it enormously.
And Aldridge has a chance to maintain this remarkable sequence of his. And he drives it into the top corner, even though Seaman went the right way.
Whilst he was at Liverpool, I think his overall game improved an awful lot. And although he scored an awful lot of goals, he could also join up in the play as well, whilst he was at Liverpool, and that really helped him.
It's amazing the amount of goals he scores, really, because if you look at him, you wouldn't say he's got Ian Rush's pace or Les Ferdinand's power in the air, but he scores just as many goals from through balls getting onto the end of them, and equally as many headers, you know. So people always say, well, how does he do it? Because he doesn't have, you know, like the skill of a real skillful centre forward or the natural pace of Ian Rush, as I mentioned before, but he just happens to be in the right place at the right time. And to be honest with you, I've not seen another goal scorer like him.
I think if you played football alongside John Barnes, you would learn a lot from John Barnes. You would be encouraged a lot by John Barnes. You would be made to feel more comfortable by John Barnes. But you look at the other players that were there. There were Peter Beardsley was there. The team was on a roll. It was a great team. There were phenomenal individual stars in that team, and yet they knitted into a good team as well.
Still Barnes, brilliant. Houghton couldn't convert. McMahon, 3 in the way. Tony Adams ain't got a foot to it. Well, McMahon won that back wonderfully well. Beardsley. Oh, a goal for Aldridge.
I think you look down at the goal here. It was Wednesday night. We took Forest apart 5-0. You know, and it was at Anfield, and Tom Finney said it was the greatest exhibition of football he'd seen, you know, in a long, long time. And it was so fluent that night. To be fair, the first 15 minutes we were a little bit on the par, but after that, you know, no one would have stopped us. We were absolutely, everyone was on top form that night.
Now to Barnes. Oh, Beardsley!
It was such a great team. You know, the team was absolutely a joy to play in. To play alongside John Barnes was absolutely magnificent. At that time, you know, he was one of the best players in the world. Absolutely class. But if he was on top form, you know, everyone was lighting off him, you know, and getting the strength from him.
Find Aldridge. And that is another superb Liverpool goal. Peter Beardsley made it. John Aldridge scored it. And as with everything Liverpool do, it looks simple to make it 2-0. And now he goes alone. Still Beardsley. Hit the bar. Short. Beardsley's flick. Houghton. Oh, McMahon, he's put Aldridge in. If they got their finish
formation right, Liverpool might have been 6 up. Nickel forward, Aldridge, Houghton. Something close to a 45-minute football fantasy. Ray Houghton was at the heart of it. John Aldridge was often on the end of it. And Peter Beardsley was just unbelievable.
29 games, I think, we went unbeaten. You know, it was brilliant. I mean, you used to go out game after game thinking we're going to, how many are you going to win by today? It wasn't a case of you thought you were going to get beat. It was, you know, you weren't going to lose and how many goals you were going to score today. You know, the team that year were exceptional.
And Aldridge, it's 5!
When he went out to play every game, he knew he was going to score. Like, if he got a chance, he'd score it. Which is probably why he's been one of the greatest goal scorers that Liverpool had.
You go back to the semi-final of the Cup in '88, you know, the volley to win Liverpool, the game was magnificent.
I remember the headlines in the morning, it was Barnes on toast, which was a comment from one of the Notts Forest players, and I think that was the best thing that could have happened to us because it really sparked John Barnes that day.
Barnes is on the left wing, running past Chettle now. Well found by McMahon, Aldridge is in the centre, still Barnes, penalty!
An occasion where everything went for us. Early on, we got a penalty in the first 10 minutes, and then from then, it was just one team in it.
And it's down now to John Aldridge, who scores!
I was asked to pick the goal of Bunt it was for television, and it was a goal he scored against Nottingham Forest.
Well, Liverpool calling on all their hardened experience.
I remember it well. I played a 1-2 with Peter Beardsley and crossed it to John to finish.
As Forest start the second half in the ascendancy, but this is what happened before. Barnes, Aldridge is there, Aldridge! And exactly the same again. Liverpool come out of defence and snatch a vital goal. And again, Barnes involved, and what a volley from Aldridge.
It was a great move. 3 or 4 people got involved and John finished it off.
John just happens to be, he just gets in the right place at the right time. In a crowded penalty area, he'll find time and space to score.
And look at this for the volley.
Probably one of the best I've ever scored. As a move, it was brilliant, and you know, it was a decent volley at the end of the day.
The terrible thing was missing the penalty in the final, and it took John a long time to recover from that.
First off, we had some chances, you know, and I always remember Peter Beardsley scored a goal where the referee just pulled back play, you know, instead of letting him take the advantage. Then you tend to think it's not going to happen here.
Beardsley distressed because he thought with an advantage play, well, it would have been a goal, wouldn't it?
And once they scored, I thought, you know, writing could be on the wall. You never give up hope. You know, you're incentive to maybe get the equaliser somewhere along the way.
Johnston is definitely going to come on, and it may well be that John Aldridge will get taken off. There is Aldridge, Beardsley. Well, he might score here. Penalty.
The way the game was going, I realised that if I never scored it, that, you know, it would be difficult to get back in the game.
And here we have high drama because Aldridge, who I think might have been replaced a moment later, is the penalty taker.
One of the things that we thought, well, maybe John shouldn't have taken it that day. Albeit, John is, you know, he's a man of his own. He stepped up and he said, right, I'm going to take it. Things happen like this.
I was very confident to score on the goal. You know, I wasn't aware of the homework what Bessant had put in, Dave Bessant, and he'd done his homework very well. He knew the corner where I nearly always put it. And if you ever watch it again, which I don't, he moved out a couple of yards and then dived outwards to close the corner, that corner of the goal up, and he made a fine save. The worst thing about it was I never had a chance to stay on the pitch and maybe do something about missing the penalty. You know, that made it even worse, I think.
It's okay, missed the penalty, but at the end of the day, you know, it's only one thing that happens in a game, and it's not because of him we didn't win the cup, it's because of many other things as well.
John will have a laugh. Unfortunately, it was a big disappointment for Alan Hansen as well, because he said he would have made more money if he had played or if he had scored.
After the game, we went on the coach and all that. He wasn't too bad, but it was the day after when we were coming home, and you know, I knew it was affected him then. But we just kind of, when we come back from Wembley, we booked a holiday right away, and we were away within 3 days, you know.
She knew, she knows me inside out, especially when I'm not scoring goals. It just leaves me alone.
When everything's going great, he's great. But when he hasn't scored a few games and things aren't, it is a bit of a pain, John.
Get the First Division with Liverpool. You know, it's nice. You know, when I look at it, you know, I've progressed like from the 4th Division with Newport, 3rd Division promotion with Oxford, second, and in the first. It's come right through, really. So that was a nice achievement.
The match kicked off on time. The players were unconcerned about any problem. They were unaware of it.
John was very affected by Hillsborough. In fact, all the local Liverpool players and backroom staff were affected greatly by Hillsborough. Some of the players wanted to talk about it because it was their way of grieving, to get it off their chests almost. John didn't.
A police official decided to approach the referee and ask for the game to be stopped.
I can remember when the day that it actually hit and the time that afterwards, he was sometimes uncontrollable about the whole thing. And we did actually put our arms around him.
Nobody realised the extent of the problem.
John really got affected by Hillsborough, you know. I mean, he was really contemplating finishing his football career if they hit him that hard.
I remember a few weeks afterwards, I think it was a good few weeks afterwards, Ireland had a game, and I actually went to the game. I just wanted to try and get my head back. John just couldn't.
Even now when he goes to the memorial services and things like that, or there's something in the paper, he still gets upset about it, you know.
And I remember going to John's house when we were doing a programme to celebrate the Liverpool centenary. And he said, I'll talk about anything, but I don't want to talk about Hillsborough.
It was the worst thing that I've ever been involved in life, and everyone else who was there, you know, to see that happen around you was absolutely horrific. You know, and for weeks after, you know, just, as you said, you see Anfield, it was a shrine, you know, to them people, you know, and the families, and it was, as I say, I can talk about it now, but for years, for a couple of years after, you know, after it happened, you know, I found it very hard to talk about. To be honest, football, for the first time in my life, took a backseat. I wasn't interested in football. It seemed nothing, non-entity, and I couldn't motivate myself to even play, to watch football. I just wasn't interested.
It was a real Merseyside thought in his head. He was only worried about them. I'm not even sure if he thought he could play in the replayed semi, but in the end, yeah, he came to terms with it, because a lot of the families wanted that as well.
This is the match that began 3 weeks ago and finished after just 6 minutes in the shadow of disaster.
The only thing that helped us, I think, was the thought of going on and winning the FA Cup for the people who died. They died watching us play, you know, to win. And that's what you know, motivated me in the end to want to play again. And the letters that I got off thousands of people in and around Merseyside and in Britain were fantastic. I was so het up before that game, emotionally and physically, because I wanted us to win that desperately.
That's searching out Johnny Barnes on the far side. He's free. Barnes, great save. Aldridge. A goal. Barnes again. Houghton. Beatrice. Oh, it's got in. Tommy Gaynor couldn't stop Aldridge getting in.
I'd done something in the game, really. I scored 2 goals, which, you know, give me such hype, but I'd done something that game was out of contact with myself. I remember Brian Law scoring an own goal, and I was so desperate for us to win the game, I went and rubbed him on the head. And when I looked at it the next day in hindsight and looked, I thought, damn, you shouldn't have done that. But it's just what the game meant to me. I didn't mean it to look or be derogatory to him or Nottingham Forest, the way it come out, and it did look awful.
And Liverpool are through to the FA Cup final to play their Merseyside rivals Everton.
For me, personally, winning the cup was great, but winning the semi-final at Old Trafford meant probably more than the final, because that was the game that people died watching. And that was very emotional. You know, and I was lucky enough to score 2 of the goals that day. And I'm sure that the order of the people around me done that for me. You know, the people who died, I'd swear they were around, you know, to make that happen. It was a good day, but then it was a sad day as well, even though we won.
I think it was fitting that it was Merseyside that was representing the cup final. Obviously, being Liverpool, we thought it was fitting that we won it as well. But it was a marvellous occasion for everyone connected with the club.
That was their memorial match, and it wasn't Everton and Liverpool who played in that cup final. It was just two Merseyside teams. And the two teams are pretty close anyway. The two sets of supporters, strangely enough, are pretty close anyway.
We got a lot of support from Everton, not only as a football club, but also all the Everton fans. You know, I think that even after their semi-final, there wasn't much celebration to be done. So, you know, I think it was fitting that we actually played against Everton as well. But it was very special, but more importantly, I felt that we had to win that.
It was just unique, really. That, you know, Ellsbury and then Everton played Liverpool. It just, I don't know. It was a funny sort of day all round, I thought.
Everyone in the world, apart from Everton supporters, felt that Liverpool should win that one. And if the homegrown ones, you know, the John Aldridge and Ian Rush scored it, I think it was probably fitting.
Liverpool attempting the double yet again. Succeeded 3 years ago, failed last year here against Wimbledon.
First goal in the cup final, I remember it was played down the right-hand side.
I think I played the ball to Steve McMahon.
This is Nicol looking for McMahon.
I got sucked in with Peter Beardsley. The ball got played over my head.
Good through ball, he got away from Ratcliffe.
I've got the keeper to beat and unselfishly crosses it.
Oh, and John Aldridge.
Him to do it the first time, I think he even caught Neville Southall by surprise. No.
John Aldridge in a great position, and Liverpool have scored.
That was one of the best finishes I've seen, because and I'm sure everyone else expected John to have a touch.
That's as special as any.
I remember that as if it was yesterday.
I was playing against him, I'll never forgive him for that one.
The finish was absolutely terrific.
And John Aldridge, the man who missed a penalty here last season in the cup final, didn't take long to make up for it.
My actual last kick of the 87 cup final was the penalty miss. And my first kick again of the next cup final against Everton was scoring a goal in the same corner where I meant to put the penalty, the top corner, which is so uncanny, you know. It's unthinkable, really, for that to happen. It wasn't a great game, to be fair. The actual 90 minutes, we were 1-0 up till the last minute when Everton equalised. The game got going in extra time, became a very open game.
Rush! Goal! Ian Rush! Liverpool back in front.
Stuart McCall scored the equaliser because 2-1 up and not much time to go, and he took it on his chest and he sliced the ball slightly, and I thought, well, Bruce is going to save that, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it nesting in the bottom corner.
The game set off, and next time it came a very good game, and Rushy come on and scored 2 great goals to win it for us in the end.
Liverpool are FA Cup winners for the 4th time, and they hope that the championship is still to come. That may well depend on Arsenal. We shouldn't overlook that.
Winterburn and Richardson behind it. Adams has made a darting little run in there. And Smith!
I think there's an awful lot of people who couldn't believe what happened that night.
It was emotion that was taking us on, you know, and in the end, fatigue must have took over. You know, we just didn't have it in us, you know. There were so many games coming up, one after the other. It was hard to play, really.
90 seconds to go, was it? Less than that, to just hold out, and then the mistake.
I remember it when John Barnes just cut in here, and he got slagged off after the game by people saying he should have kept the ball. You know, and the corner flag there, but he tried to come in and score, and it got cut out to John Lukic. And I always remember, I knew Dixon was over on his own on the right back because John was out of position. And I don't know what I meant to stop the ball, put my hands up and actually stop him throwing it out. And for some reason, I never. And when he scored, I thought, why didn't he just do it? I'd have only got booked, would have won the match.
And it came back to Mickey Thomas, who went through. And I think if you see the video, and I don't really tell anyone this, but I maybe could have brought him down for a penalty. But he'd already been through once before, Mickey, and missed, and I was hoping that, you know, if I give away a penalty to score, you're the villain, and if he misses, you're the hero. So it was one of them things.
Two seasons, really, we deserved to win the double on both occasions. The team that we had, and we never. A team, what we had was magnificent, and it should have gone down as the, you know, first double team.
I'm not a great champagne man. Just a lager will do me. But no, that's a very significant one, as you'll see. My last game at Liverpool, when I came on a sub and scored the penalty in the 9-0 game against Crystal Palace. They gave me man of the match. I think they felt sorry for me, really, because I was only on the pitch for half an hour. But no, that was a nice little touch.
Straight on. By Dalglish, the rush.
When he rushed came back, John had to go, and but we tried our best to help him in that way also.
I think they could have played together, obviously, because they're both good players and they could have, you know, complemented each other.
I think, like all good players, they probably go 12 months too early, really, or maybe even in John's case, a couple of years. You know, he'd done a fantastic job, and they're very difficult to replace.
And Liverpool, who are more concerned usually about success than sentiment, are sending Aldridge on. Beardsley has almost volunteered to go off, and Barnes says, on you go. So, what an entrance it will be if he puts this away. He has done, and it's the biggest cheer of the night.
The game that sticks in my mind most is, like, because I'm one of them dead emotional types, you know, like, oh, you know, go home, write it in the diary what happened today. It was probably John's last game when he threw his boots in the crowd, and I would have fought tooth and nail to get one of them boots, like, but it was brilliant.
I was gutted to see him go, to be honest, and I thought Liverpool made a big mistake in letting him go. Somebody like John Aldridge took with him, not only did we lose a great world-class striker, I think some of the heart went out to the club as well.
It was my last game. I was going to Spain the day after. Yeah, you know, I'm man enough to say I shed a tear afterwards. Big lump in my throat after I threw my shirt in the crowd and my boots. You know, without patting myself on the back, I'd done what I was asked to do over the 2 seasons. I couldn't do no more. But Kenny's seen things in a different light. He was looking at playing Ian and Peter up front. And I was the one that was getting shown the door, really. It's funny when you look back, I'm still playing now at 37. Glenn Aldo was still playing at 38. Ray Wilkins the same. Trevor Francis the same. Kevin Moran the same. And all these players have played abroad. So I think that speaks for itself.
You go abroad, a 5-man defence, and Sociedad played 1 man up front, and John was on his own. And the first season he went out there, he finished 2nd top scorer, and that is an achievement in its own.
I learnt an awful lot about how to eat, drink the right things, you know, when to have a beer and not to have a beer. The way the lads treated the body, the way they trained, very professional.
Well, the children just couldn't settle at all because they were in an English school. It was a very nice school, but they were the only 2 English kids. So, you know, they couldn't settle. I mean, and if they can't settle, I couldn't settle. I mean, John had his football, and we were stuck in a villa, you know, miles away.
At least I could go to training and get things at my system and meet people, and it was very hard. And at the end of the day, that took its toll. That's the reason why we come home. Done 2 seasons, absolutely enjoyed it. But I'd have stayed out there for another season if my family were happy, but unfortunately, they weren't. And I didn't really, I think it would have been unfair for me to stay out on my own.
We learnt that he was unhappy, homesick, and the family wanted to come home. And a local radio personality was in touch with him and suggested he might like to come to Tranmere. And when we heard he'd said yes, he was interested in such a move, we reacted quickly.
Aston Villa were interested in him, Leeds were interested in him. But you see, he said at the time that he wanted to come back to Liverpool. He had the house in Liverpool, he wanted to live in Liverpool. Leeds, Aston Villa might have paid him a bit more money, but it was important for him at that stage in his career to come back to his roots.
I got off very lightly with John Aldridge, but in them days, when you think about it, possibly 4 years ago or whatever, £250,000 was a lot of money to Tranmere Rovers.
You couldn't overestimate the kind of influence he's had in this team and the club as a whole. So many times you look back in the season, if you took his goals out of the equation, we wouldn't be challenging for going up, we'd actually be worrying about going down. So it has an extreme effect on the team. And in the dressing room as well, his personality, his hunger, his extreme hunger to win.
Well, he's been involved in just about everything. I mean, I think you probably know that we've been in the playoffs 3 times. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We've been in the semi-final of the Coca-Cola Cup. And John's been the division's leading goal scorer on several occasions.
Has scored that goal, his 300th in his Football League career. What an historic strike, his 24th of the season.
In particular, what actually makes me laugh my head off is at his age, you know, and he's getting on and he's still incredibly good, and obviously, I don't think he's lost much, to be honest. But he's still got that kind of anger within him, that kind of deep anger that, you know, if a set of fans start having a go at him, you can't laugh it off like many older professionals do.
Oh, it's a great overhead kick. It's a wonderful goal.
He gets angry with them, and when he scores a goal against a team that are having a dig at him, he can't hide it, and he has to turn to them, and he has to not exactly make a gesture, but certainly smile towards them, and it's that kind of real glory and that love of scoring goals.
That was terrific athleticism from John Aldridge, and really incisive. He knew exactly where the goal was.
That was the record goal, last game of the season versus Oxford at Prenton Park, 91-92 season. That was my 40th goal of the season, which was a record for Tranmere Rovers, and it's the most I've scored in the season as well. So yeah, it's a memento to keep.
We've had some heady times here, but possibly the one that people will look back at many times, and you can play the video over and over again, would be Aston Villa, possibly, with a chance of playing Manchester United at Wembley in the final. Coca-Cola.
First leg, we played really well as a team. I can remember Aldo particularly running about that day. Just absolutely incredible, the amount of work he got through. And he was playing at that time with Chrissy Malkin, who worked really hard. But both defences were scared to death of Malkin's pace, and it would leave a little bit of space for John Aldridge, and that's all he ever needed, a little bit of space. And certainly, we tore them apart that night, and 3-1 in the first leg was a disappointment to us, really. We came off disappointed, strangely enough, because we deserved to be far more than that ahead.
And then to let them off the hook at Villa Park, and to go into penalties, extra time, penalties, that was some game. And again, you have a look who scored some goals in that game.
Now it's sudden death.
And again, it was probably one of the, it's the first time, or one of the few times I've seen grown men cry. But again, this is football. It's the most ruthless game.
We'd lost our way, and clearly relegation was staring us in the face. And I never thought the day would come when I'd actually call the manager in and say we were going to have a reshuffle. He'd been our manager, John King, had for 9 years, and that was his second spell.
Was he actually somebody that you would pick out as being a future manager? So many other players you see take on, as his great friend Ray Houghton has done at Crystal Palace, take on the player-coach role, the player-manager role. They're almost eased into it. They're brought on by the manager as, well, you're going to be my successor, son, and I'll look after you and I'll teach you the ropes and this, that and the other. John King didn't do that with John Aldridge. John Aldridge was just a player for Tranmere Rovers and no more. I'm glad that it's happened for John now, because nobody had ever coached him in those skills. Nobody had ever really thought of him in those skills, I don't think. And I think football might have just let him down at the end and forgotten him.
John Aldridge being a manager has surprised me, greatly surprised me, because I've never seen the side of the particularly studious side of learning the game, and because John's just a natural goal scorer, and I just thought he just enjoyed scoring goals, not taking a tremendous amount of responsibility, i.e., you know, being a skipper or whatever.
He doesn't need to change that much, because what managers strive for is he strives for the respect of the players, and he's had that every moment since he's been here. And it was very smooth. The changeover was very smooth, and no one's felt uneasy about calling him gaffer.
One thing I've took over is the training, Anfield's way of training the players, and what I learned on the training ground there. Passing game and passing and moving, playing the game easy, not making it difficult. You know, and that's what Liverpool's always done over the past.
If he is himself, then he'll make it easy. If he wants to follow someone else's examples, and he wants to carry out an act that's no John Aldridge, then it's more difficult for him. The best advice is to be yourself, make the decisions you think are right.
At the moment, I'm just delighted that I've been given a chance at Tranmere to show me proof as a manager, and hopefully I can do it. You know, if in 2 years' time I wasn't cut out to be the manager, then you shan't see me. David Langan made me aware of the fact I was eligible through my grandparents, and I was delighted. I thought he was messing at first, and we had a long, hard talk about it. He went and seen the manager at the time. He was Owen Hand. A couple of weeks later, Owen Hand got the sack. Jack Charlton came in and was, you know, told the awareness of what was possible. And he came and watched me and Ray Houghton play at Aston Villa in the semi-final of the Milk Cup, and we both had very good games.
John's in many ways been my main man, really. I mean, John filled a space that I needed up front. He changed his style of play. Instead of trying to play through the middle, he started to do the runs for me down the flanks, and he was directly responsible for the way we played our game, which was played in behind people, turn people, condense the areas, don't let them out, and John did a great job for us.
I remember our first training session with Ireland. We thought, right, here we go. We had this old kit, we trained, it was pouring down the rain, we trained indoors, and there was holes in the roof, and we had buckets out where the water was going into the bucket, and we looked at each other and said, this is international football.
One of my first games, we beat Brazil 1-0 at Lansdowne Road, you know, and I nearly scored one in the second half. I always recall it was just goalie, just hit his foot, you know, and it could have gone anywhere, and it would have been nice. That would have been my first goal, actually, so it would have been nice for it to have been against Brazil, but it wasn't to be.
He was very important to us, you know, especially during the first 20 games when he never scored. You know, that's when we really understood, wow, we need this player, so we do badly, you know.
The pattern of the game Jack wanted was me to be a runner, not a goal scorer as such. So when the balls were getting long into the corners from full-backs, I was the runner to pick the ball up and feed it back into midfield.
He struggled to score, and I don't know why.
And it was a very hard task. And subsequently, whenever I was getting into the box, I was a little bit tired.
It's a much harder role, I think, playing up front for Ireland than it is to play for any other team, I would imagine.
It got to me immensely, you know. I never believed that I was ever going to score. It got to that stage. And again, subsequently, I was hitting the post, off the line. It was a mental block, you know, until when Ray Houghton against Tunisia, Ray Houghton went on a bit of a mazy, and he probably could have scored himself, and he just rolled it for me, and a yard out, no one in the goal, tapped it in.
So it was about his usual distance, wasn't it, about 1 yard out. But no, at that time we were just delighted, because it was more delighted, more relief for John than it was actually for the team, because even during that time it wasn't that things were going badly for us during the first 20 games. We still had a very successful time during John's initial period.
The moment he came in and scored his first goal, he got the biggest cheer I've ever heard in Dublin.
It was a huge weight off my shoulders, you know, such an easy goal made such a difference, because after then I went on and I scored 19 goals fairly rapidly.
Houghton's corner, O'Leary there, and it's forced home by John Aldridge. Aldridge brings his second international goal. That little chink in the run, it's 2-0. Irwin with it, curled in dangerously, Aldridge, it's there, it's 1-0. Crowd still in the penalty area.
I remember he scored two tremendous headers. I mean, he even shook me. I mean, I hadn't seen John head balls quite that way before.
And Aldridge again! That's his 15th international goal. John Aldridge notches goal number 18 for Ireland. Towards Aldridge! He's done it! He's within one of the record.
He scored some vital goals for the team. Great goal scorers, they just have that knack, they just have that ability to be in the right place at the right time. And it's not luck, it's having a great knowledge of the game and a great awareness around in the box.
And a penalty for Ireland, which John Aldridge will take.
I always enjoyed taking penalties. I think of modern day footballers think Cantona can't be touched because he waits for the goalkeeper to move, like I did.
The little shuffle led to success in the past. And there it is again.
To move before the kick's taken. If you see them in the corner, your eye, you don't have to roll into the corner. And that's when I brought this little shimmy, shuffle, whatever people called it, and you know, that's just what was happening with keepers, and it worked a treat.
The European Championships in '88, where it was the first time Ireland had qualified for anything. We didn't know what we were in for, we just went out and enjoyed ourselves. We played England first game and beat them.
We probably had a little bit more desire on the day, if anything. It showed the people around the world what we could do, and it gave us a great self-belief in ourselves. And we should have beat Russia as well in the European Championships. And if you can compete with the likes of England and Russia then, and compete with the best in the world. You know, and we did. I would say we had great players, but we had some very, very good players who played from the heart and was very, very well football educated up top. It took Holland 84 minutes to break us down and got a very fortunate goal to knock us out.
Robert. Played in towards Lineker. It's a goal!
Played England on 5 occasions and did not beat us. We won 1, drew 4. They were like derbies, local derbies. We all knew each other. A lot at stake. And they were very tough games.
At times you've often been compared to like a little bit of a pub team, which is true from a point of view of the way we had to crack together and the bonding that there was among us. But as soon as it came to the pitch and as soon as it came to the serious stuff, you wouldn't come across a more professional bunch of lads.
We've got a great camaraderie we have had over the years between the players. I think the reason being, we've had a lot of flack. You know, people like yourself playing for Ireland, people, Ray Out and Scottish Action playing for Ireland and various other players. And we've all surrounded each other to shield from these people. And it's made us much harder, you know, on the field and play with more pride, if anything. And it's shown over the last 10 years, I think, and that's everyone else who's plays for Ireland, you know, through the ancestral route. Yeah, I come off with an injury just before half-time, so I never took part in the penalty shootout, but it was very nerve-wracking on the side watching us.
We actually played really well that day. I mean, the humidity was so high, and you know, you just couldn't get your breath. And then, you know, we got through to the penalties, and then it was a case who's going to take a penalty. Our best penalty taker's gone off. You know, Aldo's off the pitch. You're thinking, oh, who's going to take one? I mean, I've never took a penalty in my life. I took one. Tony Cascarino was standing there, and I went up to him and I says, "You're taking one." He's umming and saying, "Oh, I don't want to take one. I don't want to take one." I says, "Right, you're taking one."
It was great for Backy Bonner. I really pleased. He deserved, you know, the accolades he got after that, saving the penalty. For all what he'd done for Irish football over the years, it was nice.
And what a story this could be, because the man entrusted with a penalty that could get Ireland through to the World Cup quarter-finals is one of the longest-serving players, David O'Leary.
Dave scored the winner, so it was nice for a Dublin lad to do that as well.
For the final penalty going, you know, if you've seen the relief and then all the celebrations afterwards, it was immense. And, you know, it was just such an experience.
The first World Cup that we'd been to, we got the quarter-finals. No one expected us to get there, so we were on hiding to nothing, really.
To play the host nation in Rome on that occasion, you know, we'll live in the memory. We only lost 1-0, and Quinny could have actually put us in the lead, you know. It was a good move, big Paul McGrath whipped in a great cross. Quinny's beat everyone, head and shoulders about everyone. Fired in a superb header, and Walter Zengas pulled off a magnificent save.
I think Baresi read the game very well. We always found it difficult to break it down. The elite from the country. Jack told us the way that they played as a system and how to stop them.
I can't emphasise how much John was important to us. I mean, if a guy plays a ball into a corner and nobody runs, it makes the guy that's delivered the ball look an idiot. But because they deliver the ball and John's already on his way there before the guys even thought where the ball would be played, it sort of started us, and most of our movement began in that way. And John was always the one to do it. Great worker.
You know, we put on a good show. One piece of magic really from the Italians unlocked us, and we went out to competition.
The fact that they only beat us 1-0, and we'd got a result. And if we'd got a result against them, it's easy to say, no, I'd have fancied ourselves against Argentina. But it was a great occasion getting the quarter-finals for a small nation like ourselves. That was something that I will treasure. You know, everyone knows what international football has meant to me in Ireland, playing for Ireland over the years, and to win the Sports Writers International Player of the Year was very special. It was a great honour. That was a funny story with Violi's shit in the World Cup in America, up in Boston, and we were playing Italy. Prior to the game, we're both lining up, you know, and Violi's at the front and Italy, and he walks right along our players and comes to me. And I thought, what's this? And he's gone, John. And he went, I said, after the game, your shirt, your shorts, your socks, for my shirt. And I thought, I'm in the big time here. If you got the likes of him coming to me, I was delighted. And all the other lads were going like that. All our lads couldn't believe it, so we had a laugh about that afterwards.
Townsend right in there. Houghton also making his presence felt. There's a shot! The goalkeeper pulled badly out of position. And Ray Houghton.
Took Sline scrap. It was all heated time. I'd been warming up for 5 minutes to get on. We were losing 1-0. And whilst I'm warming up, Jack's told me to get me kit off and go on. And they scored straight away, made it 2-0. So as they're making the substitution, 2 of our lads come off. Jason McAtee goes on. I followed Jason just a split second after. And this clown had pulled me back off the pitch. And I lost all my composure. It was the fact that we were 2-0 down, we had 10 men on the pitch. And I lost my cool and I started saying a few little swear words and letting them know what my thoughts were.
I think he actually said to the fella, if you'd let me on that 45 seconds earlier, it could have been 2-2, you know, and that's the quality of the man. He wants to go out and he knows and he believes in himself that he can score goals.
That was the most important goal against Mexico. That goal was enough to get us through on goal difference to the next stages of the World Cup. I was disappointed that we never progressed as far as we should have done. Against Holland, we never really played well. All right, the heat took its toll on certain players, but I think we had the squad then that we could have got to semi-finals. And I was quietly confident that we could have done, but we never played to our capabilities, really.
I was ever so pleased that the 2 goal scorers from the World Cup in that year was Aldridge and myself. You know, we've went through 10 years together, you know, for Ireland, and we've been to Oxford together, and maybe our last big championship, both of us scored the goal.
I would rate him up there with Garland and Ian Rush.
First season I was here, I think I scored 19 goals, and that was purely from watching him and watching what he does.
He'd always be the one behind in training, doing a little bit extra.
He's elusive in the box.
The ability to sniff out a chance.
He gets in front of defenders, knows where to run.
He would be the one that when the ball was on the right-hand side of the pitch and the left-hand side of the pitch, you always knew that he was around. You could bet anything he'd be in the middle of the goals.
Balls played into the box, you always found that John could be on the end of it.
He peels away and gets onto headers.
He's got that little knack of just anticipating where a ball will come before someone else.
He gets in great positions, it makes it very difficult.
He was such a handful. You ask any defender.
Inside the box, he's dynamite.
He's got to be on a par with Rushy and Lineker and people like that.
You just look at his record.
And he's still scoring goals. At 37, is he now?
He can find space where there isn't any.
But he's up there with the best.
One of the best in the country.
I've had the right moves at the right time. People probably see me at the right time to get the breaks that I've got. But once I've got the breaks, I've took them. And that's my ambition is probably done that for me.